Minister Jenkins management ra Ministry of Education malungil eruklok mem kulturul mi bol eden malitial oversight hearing ergi dalawang gamirel antrial chills me gumul waiso sem ngal tang tedrel al trial chills ya presidenta Baulis obanged ngartial oversight hearing Florida el development direct ngartial obanged vice chairman ra committee education senator sungino ngartiang senator sangba ngartial obanged senator mangsa ngartial obanged tigel bebira members sa alsangrira ulun da kanang artiam gardi tidio bangkela committee Michael mom kotmok la tira mo mes e gukmo o wal trenting la gelom tretel la ulred al maral dulu e akung segidan metang minister let me thank you for being able to come here with the management team and let me allow you to give your opening statement and introduction of the management team, please.
Hello. First of all, thank you for the invitation to attend. We all look forward to being able to talk about our favorite subject, which is our students' education, and to share what we have done, experienced so far, and to answer any questions you may have, and get any input you may feel appropriate. So, again, thank you for coming, for having us here. First, I want to introduce this is our leadership team. On the extreme left, my extreme left, is Chief Talay, Chief of Division, Curriculum and Development and Implementation. Next to her is Ms. Nyasawe, Chief Nyasawe, who's in Chief of Division, School Testing and Data Collection. And next is Ms. Tabalwal, Chief Tabalwal, who's Chief of Instructional Induction, Teacher Professional Development and Continuing Education. To my immediate left is Director Kilcullen, who is Director of Bureau and Curriculum Instruction. Next over here to the other side, Director Ray Mo'o, Director of Bureau of School Operations. And after him is Director, sorry, I got left off my list here. Ibu, who is our Director of Human Relations. And finally, to the extreme left is Chief Miguel, Chief of the Division of School Operations and Management. So that being said, we submitted a letter, which you have used, and thank you for your time and patience for us getting that to you. And so at that point, I would just like to, since agendas I'm not cleared, would you like me to go through those issues, or do you want to just open this up for questioning?
Basically, I will go through the agenda and cover items that we have before you, and then you will have a chance to respond or make statement to that effect. Would that be okay? Okay.
So as we begin with the question was the Ministry of Education strategic plan and where we are with that. And I would like to explain a little background. We did some previous reading before taking the office in terms of some of the panels, reports which were offered in different elements of education, as well as the last three strategic plans, or master plans, as it's somewhat called. As far as outlining what we're doing this year, we looked at the 2016 or 2017 edition and found that as useful, but really the 2006 and 2017, which was a very detailed report, and I want to compliment everybody who was on that, because it gave a great deal of input and gave a very specific areas which we thought would be areas of concern. So what we have used in terms of our strategic plan is sort of an amalgamation of those two plans. As far as the report here goes, we identified 4 major areas which we felt needed improvement, which are in both of those strategic plans. There's the improved teacher quality of instruction, improved learning structure for improved student learning, which is a very broad topic, obviously. Effective use of personnel with greater investment in those in the classroom. And then area number 4, to replace existing schools with new elementary school campuses and a new high school campus. So those are our major 4 areas that we're focusing on for immediate strategic planning. Okay. Go ahead. As far as improving teacher quality, that's obviously been a major goal of all the strategic plans. And so what we have done with ours is to follow much of what was done, but we did do something different. We had our curricular specialist from the Division of Curriculum and Instruction to go into the classrooms and work with the teachers in the classrooms to help provide them assistance for those teachers who are less experienced or without degrees, and mentor them in best educational processes. That began in September 2021 and is continuing as we speak now. Finally, next we embraced a very aggressive training project of off-island Zoom visits and Zoom trainings, which began again as I arrived on September 21st and has continued throughout all of these times, and we are continuing with that. Now, with those Zoom meetings, I want to point out that some of the Zoom meetings, of course, we do get those recorded so that teachers can review them at different times than they actually took place. And we also have developed assistant teams who can help teachers who have difficulty with the online issues, and we'll get more detail on that much later. And the other major section of the online training is the principal's leadership in training and evaluation technique, which again is ongoing. We are making a concerted effort to enable our principals to assume more leadership roles as leaders of their schools. With degrees, obviously degrees are something we want to have more and more of. We began a BED, which is a Bachelor's in Education program, through the University of Guam. That was begun in December 2021. It is ongoing, and we anticipate graduation of that class next December. The master's degree program with San Diego State University had initiated and begun before our arrival. It has continued, and the students are now have completed that program. We are looking to modify the teacher salary scale as a part of our teacher certification process to attract more capable and highly qualified teachers to teaching by improving the salary, and more importantly, improving the ability of them to progress as the salary scale goes on as they develop their expertise. And we are looking to, once that is in place, we begin to look to secure teachers who can be recruited from off-island. I think that's a distinct possibility that we have the option of doing that. I think we can get significant numbers of teachers to come here to help us as we train our own teachers. Finally, with that was the Peace Corps. Peace Corps is considering a return to Palau. We had a very positive meeting with them. I think it was about a week and a half ago. That was the initial assessment time which they came out for. And they were doing an initial assessment as to what our infrastructure in place to be to assist those volunteers. Particularly of concern were the health resources and infrastructure. They reported back very, very pleased with what they found, and they didn't see any problem with the health system. So that was a real plus. And so we made our case that we definitely would like to have more volunteers in the classrooms with us. And they are saying, well, the Peace Corps is a little different than it used to be, but they do use that model. However, they want to make sure that Peace Corps volunteers are working together with a Palauan teacher when they're in the classroom, which will work fine. We're piloting that right now with not a Peace Corps volunteer, but an American teacher who is team teaching with a Palauan teacher, and it's working out really well. So that would be our area number one. Area number two, again, provide improved learning structure for improved student learning. This will be a much more comprehensive discussion later, I'm sure. We eliminated assessments and many of the testing programs which we were using, which provided 20 additional days of instruction, and that has continued through this year. And we did see an increase in our students' achievement scores at the end of last year. Now, I'm not saying that's because of this, but I'm saying there may be a relationship between those two things. The modification of the school calendar with the year-round is what has been called. Basically is 4 quarters with intersession classes at the end of each quarter, grades coming out at the end of each quarter. And it has also been, I think, a very successful program. As we'll go through a little bit later, we've had students during the intersession, a group of high school students put on a really wonderful drama production, which they would not have been able to do during our regular school hours. We also had a group of 20 of our high school students who are having their academy through the hospitality section. They were all certified scuba divers by a donation from the Friends of the Palau National Marine Monument Society. So that was really well founded. That was in the fall. The spring session we just had, winter, we had a large volleyball tournament for our elementary school students, where they had basically every school came in, played over a 4-day period, and was really an exciting time and really well done, well participated with. The last spring, which just ended last week, we had through the Minister Matul's efforts, there was a group of Taiwanese baseball players and coaches and basketball players and coaches who came to Palau and conducted training sessions for our students at that time for a week. So that was also something, it was a full-day training session for the kids. So I think that was a very good experience for them. That is part of the intersession program, is designed to provide opportunities outside of the normal education time. So that would be another one, the intersession programs. We also tried to revitalize the school districting policies so that parents must live in the area of their students' attendance. We didn't prohibit, if you already had a student attending a school, they could keep them in the same school. So there was nobody being forced to move. But new students coming in Korora area particularly, needed to attend their schools, as well as even in Babeldaw. So those people, you couldn't live in, we don't want people living in Ngarlong and sending their children to school at Korora Elementary School. The overcrowding situation at that school, as you know, Chairman, is becoming very serious, and we need to do something to help alleviate that problem. The final thing which we did, which I think will show a huge benefit for us, is we initiated kindergarten for age 5-year-olds. As you know, the mandatory school law, attendance law, begins school at 6 years old. So our students beginning in our schools were at least 1 year behind the majority of students in the world. And so the beginning of that program was a huge expansion of what had been done before. We now have a program in every elementary school, so that we're hoping to see, and they are undergoing a very strong, rigorous, what we call it, a phonics reading approach. So we're hoping to see some real development in that area. So as those students grow and go through the school, we anticipate seeing the impact of that program. And then we introduced 2 new initiatives. First of all is an intensive reading program known as the Accelerated Reader, and that is an individualized reading of fiction of student choice. And they take individual reading, they take the books, they can go online, which most of them are doing right now, to download the books. They can read those. At the conclusion of the books, they take a quiz and a test, and then they receive a score on that, and well as points, so we'll be able to track how many books they've read. But the idea of that is that test also forms the basis for diagnostic assessment of each child, so that after a student has taken 3 or 4 tests, the teacher can take a look at that student's record, and the system will recommend certain types of reading skills that they may have needs in. So that's a very important one. That was delayed, unfortunately, but we did get it started beginning in October, and almost all the schools are running there. For most of the students, we're still having some bandwidth problems in a couple of the schools. So the Be Able is also another system of that, but that's a content area, and that's a design to enable individualized reading assignments being given to students on a common topic, so that students of different reading abilities can continue to study and discuss the same items, rather than giving. We found out last year when we conducted a survey that about 80% of our 10th grade students were unable to read at the 10th grade level. So giving them a 10th grade textbook didn't make much sense because they couldn't make with this. So what this system does is it's a database. The teacher identifies the database they wish to access, the articles. They take that, they ask to the computer then to give each individual student that database at their reading level. So it's a very powerful tool, and we're seeing some wonderful results with that so far. And then finally, we introduced the new school information system known as the Admin Plus, and that's a total individual school information system regarding everything about the students, demographics, grades, history of grades, as well as faculty work, faculty grades. And the most important element that we've gotten in place this year has been the use of the teachers' computerized electronic grade books, so that now the teachers from grades, first grade up, even kindergarten are using it now, are able to use enter their grades into the computer, into their grade book. It looks just like a grade book. It's personalized for them alone. They're the only one with access to it. And all they need to do is enter the student grade on each assignment. At the end of the quarter, or at any time during the quarter they choose, the computer will then generate the overall grade for the student, for individual students, and then will generate the grade point average of all those students. And then that is then sent to the report card, would be usually the principal or the registrar in the case of Palau High School, in which case the report cards can be reviewed, sent out, and we're doing that by hand, but they are also able to be emailed. Once we get, we're trying to get the information from parents so that the emailing goes out. So that no longer do parents have to wait 2-3 weeks to get report cards. Report card grades are error-free because they are done by computer, which multiplies really well. But prior to this, the teachers would have to take each grade they had in their grade book, calculate the student's individual grade, and then at the end of all of that, calculate their GPA of all the students in their classes. Now, obviously, there are going to be errors, and it's very time-consuming. All of that's out of the way now. All they need to do is enter the individual grade on individual subjects, and the computer does the rest. And it is backed up, fully backed up, not only in here, but also in the cloud, which is actually located in California. So that's been a big plus. So it saves teachers a lot of work. It facilitates communication with our parents and gives a timely distribution of report cards, which is a big plus right now. Okay, then we move to the area need, number 3, effective use of personnel with more emphasis on those in the classroom. And the first thing, of course, was already talked about by sending our educational specialists, who are our most highly qualified educators outside of the chiefs and directors, of course, to the classrooms. So they're already in the classrooms, and they've been there now. This is going on their 2nd year. So that's been a big help. We have not replaced all of the teachers who have resigned or retired. Obviously, our enrollments have changed. There's a change in the demographics, and so it was not necessary for us to completely fill every position who left. With the use of new demographics, new numbers of students, we were able to cover those classes without absolutely replacing simply everybody. We did the same thing in our central office. We reduced that by about 10 people, resulting in significant budget savings. And finally, again, the smaller elementary schools, we had actually some schools which were having more teachers than students, and that doesn't make a lot of sense. So we worked on that and trying to help that reaction out. And it also would enable us to increase the number of teachers in the larger schools. For example, I think Corona Elementary School, we increased their staffing, even though their enrollment remained fairly static, but we increased that because of the ability we had to do. Now, the next one is one which is a long overdue, and that will be the construction of new schools. And that's something which we are very hopeful we're going to be able to get taken care of in the very near future. And while that's still in the planning session, and we'll talk more about that later, we're looking at least 2 new schools, one of an elementary and the other which may hopefully be a K-12, both on bubbled up. And that's what our goal is in the next 2 years to have done. Okay. Now going to committee request number 2, or you want to stop with that, or how do you want to do this then?
We'll stop for now, and they will cover this and then move on, Minister. Thank you, Minister, for elaborating on the strategic plans for MOE. Let me begin by saying that's the whole point of asking that question, because what has happened from the schools, parents, from the communities, initiatives were coming in, and no one was knowing what's the plan. Why are we doing all of these initiatives? What's the aim of all of this? That has been something that's been questioned by the principals and other stakeholders. So I'm glad you're sharing this out loud, and I'm sharing with you the evaluation from the 2006-2016 master plan and the current one that is already in place. And just to, while you have identified things to do here, just to emphasize that there is a need for global competence as well as Palauan values. That is something I hope that while you're doing everything, that Palauan values and language, Palauan studies, is not left out in the process. At the same time, the curriculum and instruction, that there was a move to move into local relevance in terms of materials. That is something that we emphasize. And we're hoping that as you evaluate and improve the curriculum, that it retains that relevance to our local context, as well as learning from the outside, but retain that local context. Those are just brought out to make sure that while you're considering on these 4 things, that we try to incorporate other things, because some of those things that are mentioned in the master plan are equally important. Let me cite one of those: community partnership support. Those are some of the important things that are need to be there. So I know you have a lot on your table, but I also want to impress upon you that look at the other things that you might be able to do. That way we cover the master plan holistically. The second request that I'm hoping you will be able to do is to collect the data on implementation. We were doing that. I know Director Moore was doing that, but hopefully you can continue to keep that. So by the end of 10 years, we can have some evaluation of what actually did we do, how well did we do those. That way we can determine the next 10 years afterwards. Because we realized after the 2016 plan, a lot of things did actually happen, but no one was designated to keep track of all the activities. At the end of 2016, we knew we did a lot of things, but the records were not there for us to show going forward. So that's a request in terms of this. That's all I want to emphasize on this is, number 1, that our stakeholders are well aware of what the plan is, how are you going to implement, and how they can be part of the implementation going forward. The stakeholders need to be part of those plans and their understanding of the plans and how this initiative, if we're doing this, how is this going to be tied to an accomplishment in the future? That's the request. That's all for this particular area. Any question on this particular before we move on to the next? Senator Small.
Sulangnya cerak di soal logera wanal question minister subasak mo din asin sa maktim ko to bela kamo hensil to kam regel hindi ungile masuk ikal kora talgi belo takta soal meloy akti malungil sel report rakal nera chair koram sada gigil koram legera karulik tagi report ngun may adine soal kora omisringya girel sel Iowa assessment diri ka report ya yang koram le mention ngira statement ngira oy kana mention na statement tergal kwasing maybe lada kal sem attribute ringin morak mal kora ngarang klel ding mal na nga significant tal champra from school year 2014 almora 22 makora di curious el kwasingara kora man ne changes el kora le. But I was curious to know dito kasi el previous year ling di compare at 21 ma 22.
Well, thanks. That's a very good question. When I said we cannot attribute it directly to that, that's because I'm pretty fussy with my statistics. There is no direct proof that means that's the only thing that we did get improved scores, and they were good improvement of scores. But when we were looking at that, we thought, well, there's an addition of the 25 additional school days, which probably helps as well. The additional thing, which I think came as a result of one of my discussions with the chairperson, is maybe the teachers were taking it much more seriously than they had in the past, the Iowa testing, and so as a result, maybe the students did. So there are other factors that may have impacted on that, but I would certainly say that those two issues of having the teachers, the specialists in the classrooms, as well as adding 20 days to the school year would be a major factor.
Oyak ti curious ligilo ko ba kalmora school year 20 ya score sa dire kalmlar. So could that tip be attributed al morsel tam nga pandemic ng marangal ka angara kora bulu ngatangara bulay kora de kalsal adjust al mortiang among
I saw that as well.
okay.
And well, that was a fall. I think it was because in the spring, schools were canceled in the fourth quarter. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, that they wouldn't be able to give the Iowa test in the spring. So it was then given in the fall.
Okay.
Now, I don't know as to how the norms were developed for that. And so I just had to kind of, it just because of a fall assessment, it's not equal to the same measure.
Okay.
That's the only thing I can say.
Continue actin ko ra curious ra. Sige dal ko ra man edip pe mal ko ra ngil news mak ko din so kal mo matangali. Evere el continue chairman em ko daluktan mo. Sula minister.
Sala Minister, Sala Senator Sakbaw. Yes, we're going to go right into the second part, but so we're already in that particular current student performance data. So the first thing, Minister, is I note the result that you provided. But I also shared with you the IR result covering the 5-year trend. The point I wish to make, Minister, and this is, yes, you're citing particularly 21 and 22, but if you look at the holistic result of the test, there were years prior to this that scores were actually about equal or better, so the fluctuation has been up and down, and to the point that the scores mentioned by Senator Sangbay did go down, and then right now it's, we do realize that there's improvement. The only thing I want to point to this area, Minister, is we need to recognize parents, teachers, students themselves, and the principals contributing to this increment. To basically share this note over here and say, because a specialist went into the schools and you added these days, I think it's only fair to also share that parents do contribute to our student success, teachers do contribute, and principals, and of course, specialists and the management team. I just want to make sure that those things have to be pointed out, because that's also something that the principals have been voicing, that somehow when you present it's always, you make a point of stressing that because these things happen, the scores are going up, but we also need to acknowledge other performers to make sure that the scores are doing well, but everyone is contributing to our scores. That's the whole point I want to bring to this point about presenting the holistic numbers. Tiyak so ito ko belaw. A score sa 21 ma 22 mlongil. Digel score sa lomo ra 2018 il May amlan niya ungil teng. Dim la kadiblel makit raw olel melmung trela. Mlan niya klingolel em lora pandemic ng radio elagi tial na to pandemic ng moral mongil. Ndi kadil specialist ta ulum longil Dia kadir blur to kasils ara tam dira blur bela ngarinya urerir ma ulmum longil ar sensei ngarinya urerir ma ulmum longil mar specialist ma ministry ay kita suatu lo otro se aklingole la skula dia kadir liga gidel morul ar adal ngara bulum te dire ngarinya urerir emer de elra skula kita di suatu lo otilo se kadmo o to da ten الرول ادريك المو وتمان اورير بك ادل كده تمغلو سي كده دي سوال دولي. That's the whole point on this particular point, Minister.
Your point is well taken, Mr. Chair. The only reason I only point out those two issues, they were the only two things that were changed significantly in the schools. Basically, everything else was as it was the year before. Again, and also in looking at these scores, please remember, you're not looking at the same group every year. You're following a group as it goes through. It's not the same group of students. It's whatever in the 10th grade, and then the next year the 10th grade. So it's not a longitudinal study. It's a comparative study. The other thing I want to point out is that, and again, it's probably just my misunderstanding, is that I don't consider these scores of any type we have right now as acceptable. I know our students are capable of more, and I think we're going to get there. But I want to just make sure I make that clear. I'm not satisfied with scores in the 20th or 30th percentile, and I don't think anybody should be. So we're going to get there. But I appreciate the reinforcement of that concept with the parents and the teachers and the principals' roles, and I think you're correct. They have a significant role in this, obviously.
Thank you, Minister. The second paper in front of you is the report cards that I was able to obtain. As you look at those numbers from the Tail Elementary School that we have, and the number of A's, A plus A's, B plus B. Significantly, the lot of our students are getting A plus and A's and B's. Overwhelmingly, they are doing so well in the report cards. Chief ngira suai ka omes ay galderar MOE. Ngway segil beto ka A mabi A plus.
Yes, that's about right there.
Sige dakti. Ela tegi da akamin tena giret yang. Chip telega uma chip tabulwal. Ngwangara osiura akamokra school waseng ngwangara klisi el osis klel. Ngwangara klungel osis clear sensei. May galteng as edro waseng mbral girel waisi. Chip teleg. Akamo kung ngwangara klisi el our sensei lord together kay gel girel kamo learning targets.
Tasil se Senator, elal labola ka ikal quarterly assessments. Our sensei adir kamalmol malol tirak kalwasisel first quarter, ay igi del losis akla agire la sensei el mlakut mokla. Masel kukulbol mare, kaluben dia kabol mare, ay igi del tengar tim lo top damora report card, etira kuk continue. Radital assessment to dorurang ya ayawa, namoda ka ikal quarterly assessments. Namoda ka bololo kulwasi gagi da olga elera subele dera first quarter, second quarter, third quarter. Isa gidi.
Chief Tawal kamu ay sa osis clear sensei. Anak klado yun siyang tumsisi ang wilol sisak na mateng malungin.
Okay, so gumis ay kateng sila 2021 sa idal time ya kadaw ungkang okay kadulu chang ilang ABC okay jawal nga niya spend beto ka mostra ngal ka ngal selfie poi say sel momes ako kumisa nga sel momes tiang sel mo uteng waldiro kulungal ka ngala beto kulungal ka ngala 80 mas 70 sel momes tial letter grade distribution elang kagid momes ra ko ra askaro de ngar malngario mangaringa ngarpap so sel kumes tiagid tigil atyang en mo otir nga kalbasa our sensei, ngaringar mal lungil lolisak lagi marangal kamungil, ngari tirgegi del medio lang at alu rabatakle, lagi tengatir malu ngaringar melodak al sebir muda, sel momen setjagif, and di all tatablol ting. Sel momen setjang, all tas pedra rogul ngalaga, rogul ngalaga ngaringar mal matitur madu takal sal madu. So segi tagisang. Check it out normal picture a classroom. Takal sab LLD wala classroom edil al sugum trigger rogul ngal kamera ready. Giril ngal sel grade level and sab iril tingar ba rogul. So segi sa tiang tia rogul school and di suguma imol class sab el ngania distribution watang. Ngania arweb tamangania malungil mangania di average. Ngagi desel gome seringi and di gome satu. Ang arbab bi yome sa 80 ma 70 da kam otia sa sing tirgelu batakla.
Alex, sorry.
I don't know if I'm getting off.
Adi ya kabum tiang ngartiang. Amo swadruri. Tiang adi gul all tringil more members sa committee dia kalau dang liak quarterly.
Okay.
Was serial ngania quarterly. Kami amo dang li tiang wa am ngartia tegi mo. Serial ngania quarterly se am leurela quarterly no se del sel top da report card grade del lo aseng nairi ya quarterly ko dome seng girel gir. Le komle mo dingiro seng segir quarterly bo lo ka lo seng ka average ra ka agamo kong ngungil ngilo si sakal ma quarterly ma report card grade sa girel gora kayo ke ngal ngartiang amal di report card el al first quarter mel al second quarter el al rak ya mo mes ngal ngetrigal ngal ngartiang tul di report card ngal ge del dingara A+ ma A ma B akariol del ngi ase komgra mo mo se egal quality egal A awai se le o mo mes tial report ngartiang ngal ge da a read below grade level. Dibera report card and email ngarba bateng ranalga. The question is that for all the A's and the B's that most of our kids are getting, how do you know that the quality of those grades are authentic? That a student that current A in long, Marard and Malgayo, how do we know that those A's are of the value that has been given to the student?
I'm glad you asked that question. First of all, if you look at that, what you have on these statistics is almost a perfect normal distribution, which is very unusual. So that what it means is that the teachers are not giving everybody A's and they're not giving everybody B's or C's. The main thing in what I need to see is that what I'm hearing from you is you want to know, have they accomplished what they're supposed to accomplish in the quarter? Is that correct?
Two things.
I don't care about the quarterly assessment test. Let's move away from that. I simply want to know, is it you want? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Do you want to know what they, if a student got an A, did they earn that A? Is that right?
Yes. And let me explain this. First of all,
Okay.
this is not a normal curve. Most of our kids are moving this way. A lot of these students are getting A's and they're off to the right. So a lot of them are getting A's and B's and very few on the other end. So the question is, yes, how do we know that the A's are A's, the B's are real B's?
For one thing, you trust the competency of your principals and your teachers. The second thing is, with our new Admin Plus system, principals can see every day what's going on in the classroom. So they know, are they doing what they should be doing? Are the teachers teaching the materials that they should be teaching? Now, how that's been used so far is probably not as strong as it should be. But that's one of the huge advantages we have in our new system, because it makes, rather than waiting for a quarterly exam, which may or may not reflect what's been going on in the classroom, we have actual data and actually information from teacher, student, principal observation as to what's going on in the classroom at any given time. That's important. And that means that we do have information as to that quality. And I think you're just overstating the importance of the quarterly assessments. Because remember, those quarterly assessments made up a large percentage of the student grade, which is going to mean that that score, by necessity, what if their score was at 1 point, that quarterly assessment grade is going to either raise it or lower it to be closer to it. So you're going to naturally have a regression to the mean in that way.
Clearly, me. This was not meant to mean that I want to query. This was for our members to understand what we were supposed to do. The whole, we're over here right now. We just have report card grades. The admin plus. Is there a minimum number of tests, quizzes, classwork, and homework required for the teachers to input to get the grades at this point?
That's up to the teachers. The teachers determine the number of points, but the principals now know exactly what those grades are being, how they're being awarded, and when they're being awarded. So if a teacher gives one test in the beginning of the quarter and another one at the end of the quarter, the principal is well aware of that long before any examination. They're aware of it whenever they look into that system. Because as I said, you can look into the teacher's grade book as a principal and look and say, this is what happened this week. This is what's happening in the class. Here's what the students are doing. Here's what their grades are. You don't even, but you'll be able to say, are they using the same methods? Are they using the same techniques? So it gives you a wealth of information as a principal, an educational leader, to use to help teachers in making their teaching techniques appropriate. And the same thing can happen with the instructional specialist, who are responsible for the standards of grades. So they're in those classrooms, they're in with the teachers, so they see what's going on.
We come back to the question, how many tests? So a teacher can only do 2 tests for the entire quarter, and that's the grades. Or can they do 5? How do you, is that?
That's not for me to decide. That's for the teacher to decide. Obviously, if you're teaching kindergarten, you're going to have a different number of assignments and things that students do. If you're teaching high school or college, those things change. So it's not, I don't think it's appropriate for us to set a number, like you must have at least X number of tests. You must have X number of quizzes. There are a lot of different things, ways of assessing in terms of participation, in terms of other ways of seeing how students are learning, rather than saying, well, you've got to give X many tests. So I think that the dogmatic way of saying you must have this or you must have this to be an effective teacher is not the way we want to do things any longer. We want to have an educational leader be able to see what's going on in the classroom and to be able to help those teachers if they are not accomplishing what they should be accomplishing.
So you're saying that there's possibility a teacher can do 1 test the entire quarter and that's the grade?
Physically possible, yes, but it's never happened that I'm aware of. I look in the grades as well. So I understand what your point is, Mr. Chair, but I don't think that that's a major issue here. The major issue here is seeing how well our students are able to learn. And I think if I look at these grades, I think that looks pretty consistent with every school I've ever worked at over the past gazillion years, that you don't really, the goal is every kid gets an A. That's your goal. That's what you would love to have in any school. Well, you never have that, obviously. But you want to see where are they coming into the realm. You're assuming that if you have a quarterly assessment, that quarterly assessment is a valid grade as to what they've learned that quarter. And that's not true. Just not accurate, Mr. Chair.
Utul mortiang gugaraga chiptili kangara curriculum. Kau gomural wasen sebila sensel sukum gukti tu test ringi ka second grade. Elo tu dati ngin diungil matara sensel atras school gukno kelde maklawang. Egen diungil teng trigal ngal kasi kita mal saudon ngil wasi tiam lamo ise tetel school.
Senator ang kadamdangil wasi kita ulang ang itial quarterly assessment. Bela tual to orang ara alra assessment tan amura principal marsensering. Matarangas ulo spare nga sensei principal ako marangal wasengirel mururingi a monitor tirgal sensei el make sure el wasei sensei osis aklit yagi del el chapter eng moringa test na kukosis aklit yang ngamangal mang moringa quiz radong lele kuk moringa test also ko mandia ngar lela principal el girel ngara school Akong sel tialga ka akong tabarngin ko amasado wasay blol mle centralized taro kulto ko marada ko rawa dulul tuiret tilang di tial ngara lagi rel ako marang wasingirel mlamora principal mandirek kal ngani atemel el namo dia ka dulu wasingirel mlosisak lagi dal kamok tial quarter bagay dal losisak langirel la sensel madangel wasay ngaringi tel al test ang mga ngaringi temel mid quarter progress report musel report na adam maadil iguk ngaringi tel al test ang quiz classwork homework project yel ngaringi iguk musel final end quarter amma ko marang wasar sense direct kal madangeling tanamos per talbe sa grade book mandira kal girin madangel wasi altaw alel ang mlaringa waisay magita magada madangay nga adal di testra first week ra school second week e dia ka test mo trial follow up ra 9th week ra school murula testra ngalgil hindi alal time dia hindi nga alela principal elgiral nga ra school monitor tigal sensei ako marar sa hidul wasing ang ara alam lamor imori elgiral observer sensei e dia kal periodically at siya igal el grade book ngani access til marugulan malsuko mandia kat ngar alir lo maklat kelet tangar sira bekal silsa I hope pak answer ako
Hindi akong mahal lang katak ngungil mang ngara lang as kundi akari kasi kami nga ministry. Hindi ang alir ko kung sutil le arsense umutang ang tilingan niya ko tigibel ituud let spangya so umdim iti talmora school ma sensei ya notitura sensei mulmakito osis aklel. Estiga kung artikel ngal.
Alsugo ma sensei mo tulgibel tur taklo sa aklel ngara alela principal rula request tel mera officer chief tabalwal di segi del silsang bolgugu en to bada adal mo ol nga serti segi da router ngi malsugo mo to spera adal kamang tel nges weng mora school kira school lol nga sera school in this case waya malgiol chef specialist Thomas na mo rulbul ngar say hildam la mo del bul ngaray lol nga sew lamor nga sensei elat malmol ngar sel transition lol nga sew kal sensei selbol madu musub ilguk mo nga suwira tara school so multuira principal gargi kal monitor tigal sensei alos pe anges eng rulya babier mera chief tabwal ko ngara training munto da adan mo ol nga sales support. I hope pak answer the question ako.
Oy, hindi po pare. Di ako ngungil man sauti lang. Aktido ya imong bo chip tolawal bo sang po. Principal samla amal gol wa sigel request training amla model entertainer MOE. Ito sa mla mo niya coaching mga aladang nga school nandiya ka entertainer training. Tiya tingin na principles. We'll get to that. Elbo chip tawalwalik sa telas nga po.
Okay, so ayan lolo ko chip talay. Kamama live sa ito lolo ko nga sa coach sa help ra sensei osis aklel tetele la loru la testringi. Tiya del tokol wasendi imo nga ige seraktir ka sensei bo principal ang motor ko lagi akumta se senator tabalwa lagi lusper se liga koror. Telal quiz, telal test. Rogul principal ala ul tirak tilagid, tirigel gilingerengi. Ya sensei el alta misal game coach, al sugu mong problem el dakas erula testeringa gi helperingi, al sugu mongkel sensei giogel wasesel bombre ke kam quiz, como test kamarang, ali kagi lagi ramul. Mang kimor segi de guktingi ma principal ngi wasen kam namos of el dingi. Agagi tagi moru mora individual sensei still agi del wase ati lasto agimra agimo la school nga seu Nding na muda kalwaigel before ti era before luase specialist met tiagi del school absur betirgal sensel momre kay gida na modia el sugu manganya onti la school wase agi ngosong sa sensei agi ospiange surangara al kamo kamal uben technology kama mamo segida ati ang aringi inding seleme agi mo ngil adu luase ngara ko malospe ndagi dibo le agi tiagi del coach agi blaring agi namo medingel wase indakal sa mamal di mo mura school mar sensel wase tiagi tagi o moruni giram el momodura sensei wase sel mo spering sel mo song so ni segid om duro kama magi me on wase rakaw namo tagi email wase como muru tiagi del stuarachi de tiagi dak malungil al tanda kalungil engel sensei segid al adura drongole la sensei ma kamam ma principal amlamo open mering lelenda kalwa au el dito po was agi mru tiagi del training ra no agi monge one by one a school ma sensei sira gi ko sa ta coaching agi di milat tigel pesel sensei el ang am na mo nga request at principal mel wasing ilagi del sensei nga ospiange so tiagi sira ko tulu lagi mal dim no on so tigel pesel sensei sira bol covid el netmu edim na ka training el ang agi na mo sel wasing kagi del sensor nga kam katakatal sensei di tiagi dangal sang sel magimong matil agi del omolokor ngil wasea sensei adi mo tester ngia takudengel tak tsaka tester ti ma grader ti ding ayel gi moru la se ndal sebel di wana tengrakaw ra quiz mangalangklel le tia wase ka average saida so segi ta kudongal gi moru ring mang agi de droger tikal principal wase tengral sensei anga segi me gi mol ngoserti di el altai ang esul gi morungil mortira kwal kora individual personalize el mora neither sel school seguida gi morungil elang
Kikabo, Senator Sobo.
Aktong okla tabringi chief tablual kasi komlawam decentralized social process engwang ara ngum sa principal. Okay. Sel questioner nga kasi sila nga niya quarterling sa amiwil within social process kung kasi nga niya talgibul tur batak regal school mo komo ila omongil mo ayo wa once a year mutual test blabol merekse ila ka ko mergamil feedback so you depend on them to call you malak se kukala idel se kadam karam batek masit tira ka
kidero ko ya mesa aywa
oh inding once a year wa ko mo larngi quarterly at least ko mo mesa egal quarter test mo ko dek masyabililyo ka talgi bulol ngosong sa tiagi dringi mahaligim tawdal mo rablilyo el akom depender tira mo maybe it still needs to be seen nga I'm optimistic o marak pasel tangguk tuwil process nding wal ko ramal ka mga temongira ayawa bumadek pasit tiagi dalit atula skura blilyo
o elang ngay gele pesel gi rule intermittent assessment el kora wal practice test el mora ayawa el I get 3 times a year I gagi dagi mo mes ya principal o mes ya say tigagi I gagi da for example a reading ar sensor nga ka uspe coaching or explicit instruction I gagi sa level wise say dagi mo seguida kasi okay ya sensor nga ka uspe tagi magi mo se tiro huy material sensor mesa de irati e mo medengay mo gi mo meeting loban tari da say gagi may gagi dangal sang sel tagi da soma seguida nga ringi
akma emal swakal ngarteng yung la principal ra egal bebira school mo kom ara ngari time oy nga kamla private school kuk mal no kodong matingli ka kalma public school sera dabong ministereng ay ko ram lang niya awak kasi ka start tra A B C D E F chin mo ra H sera pok mo sophomore tadim lengal karap akoror markama malara mi sentim amla maristela ngarsay ma-question na ul makuger tiya nga kasi kelel nga rin yan mo oy tertialo marael litiagi del approach on moru ngi ako tulungil approach hindi ngon normaling mura igel school mura private school telgibel klo involvement tra parents tamalulis tira harap tuition lang aligin mo tamalulis involve vertial process hindi mo talgibel nga rin nga tokol PTA mo ko maral mo kasi ngaram tel class amas and I'm worried kasi oy the good students are going to excel regardless of what school they're going to be ida swal sel belangel se minister sel tirigel batok alakal mo itra omrael. And we want to make sure to some extent yung malungil approach and I hope that will be the right approach. Ling swadal mesal kasi we want them to excel. Ling pagik ngiya direl kasi kita ngaram kada malbatokar mar tirgal valedictorian gindi sel the tura college. We're struggling. I don't have the answers. Ako gere, hindi nga kabagik kasi at the very least, sel process sel mlaringi ako kasing omtob ding there's some standard. Eldia ka ako to del nara heri sel wal plan mo oita nga koror ma kuk nga bililon la mo oita. Like remember time guk bililon man na struggle masel kadamong kadam la mortang itira kuk nga tara classroom. And maybe sel tagi del guk ne process nga niya quarterly. Mestri la real time malubong almost ting mere del mo address egal issue ra mongil mo ayowa amdo kasi taman na mo struggle that's almost a year behind. Akti duli director Aida ra kuk sel tarawes ending tiaman direkal approach and it's yakto kasi tiagi da ngil tiam makita aktio ngito kasi ngara kasi edel ko mo ngaringil gukla kalsal mo itay gel bebe ra school al sum ngariat talamal edi ako mere edel piga aberngi dependra principal kasi ngia mo o kolor kami kasi kama mo uspe ang yeso sige la diso kal mo duli chairman kam saud
Senator Albe.
Minister, hindi ako question praticamente kada tral mo, masul mo understand ka mamaluri dahil kaya del tokora ruwa testa baesel guk tele la osis akla. And di base ra ka understanding rigiding el ati del baesel tele la testing el blam relia awal gora why said dilla umi plus ang kada decentralized mang itzel school di tirel wal setayel el tletele la standard classroom delivery tire gel kakarusel level grade and di sige del blel point out niya umi akora om nasat nasing akom nasawan ra ko gid es public institution el tralo ruta gal kakarus el school al selbelaw kakarus el school so da los isyu standard osis akla ma classroom delivery mangal ngar along mangal nga kakoror osisyu level delivery classroom delivery morning osisyu quality osis akla morning sige da so make sure ngi Di at the same time, direct so the rule triangle get my gal school mo take a responsibility mo competitive try mo compete each other in that in a sense and elevate the quality ra education in direct. Mang katoko trial way gigid toko hindi kal so dal guktik mas okay lang gukting la school ma principal ma sensel ngil el trial di tiril mo competitive. Leng ako kal lamatito ng el principal lorur tra aurel mar sensei ala kal communicate accordingly with the principals and mo victim mga ka school mo end up dia kal subay gel level ra osis akal giril malay ra every grade level at kabong tabal
mele mo sube se tral expenditure sel omdul wasen decentralized yung ngara administrative principal I don't think itila correct. Instruction, principal instruction leader at school. That's basically what we're doing. They are the instruction leader at school. Matir omes sa data, tomes sa score analgir, and medingel wasing a trend, what is going on, and then they lead their school. So, correct tilagi del wasang ala plamul mestra principal. It's instruction. Ngar alela subra school ngar alela principal. Because kada mo masada wasa ko mlangon sa principal kama mata kang alam no we're helping principal mar sensei with instruction so sel mo yu dangra la ti instruction a principal instruction leader a school mengi yang alelo mesadeira absorber sensei ngi Wasay ngang ngil ngang maknit magara kusum okler ngi magara ulang yaswal me segida dosa dringil kire like agi delte segida lo ko nyat sipta senator tabalwal wasay one el grade as a principal en gire me lo mesay ka ro ui wasay ngal lusi yang ngil lo lis akle test lo ru lo mara lungil ngil a delivery ngi that say yang alela a principal instruction leader. So seguida dosa adanya akora de kalsuak sel omdul wase kom nangwangara am sa principal kama because basically in the instruction engage the principal of school engage up tulul subra school sulang.
Okay, kami di ko di goriti agi kung melangaral mechanism almost peringil wa on measure effectiveness la principal tigel sensel nga reungel. Kamarang most of ML assure leadership blue belt na say principal quality delivery school along madyo sisugin mo delivery school koror malubeng Harris Elementary School.
Silbo lolay gagi the statewide assessment te komesang school rangal performance rangal. Our principal lagi dia meremut teringi, kami dengan masing gatal school. Hindi keltuk le principal marangal kel marsen seringa remut tergirel subra school. Ngalateng, ngalapakal dela sensei, ngal attendance ti ngalangi rogul.
If I may add, maldi keltuk lagi school, malangal baba score seringi, lengarnya principal instruction. Like ngai tangsong sar sensei, mar principal so isa akla. Igel school el mal ngarba bateng ni mal ngayegel top al 5 school al time balgula mala sa principal understand the instruction the principal amla mo principal ending mura classroom all sis akla involve segi da tretele la instructional leader sugumang tobra scores ra school ang ani sel individual ang ani sel school wide so mlaya tal gulsa dengel mulwa say akulmes a school wide ra imol grade level ang ani consistent sensei mlamo 3 years rengalgel more than 10 below grade level mesemle staffing plan maknes just lo saying ganna mo gidel tobra classroom so agigidel data ko important but hindi ka dili agigidel data do mesra every year patoka agigidel data so for example I was al tobra last April in well ne 5 menal area ko wal weakness rangal garbelaw. So, agagi del 5, agilu tal malmay, agimle askra vendors matalmutal may del 5 almay. Like for example, say when I was say explicit instruction, agililu tal mo omes la semang malngal area explicit instruction na struggle ringa ngalgarbelaw. In fact, agimlam dingal was say tabay sensei a struggle lang long level gula explicit instruction. Magimle stop nga kawale askras agdele chief talay mongoyoy al motor belaw. So, agagi dahil magagal kada stobe guk check.
Comme cela dit exactly chip tablo la se sel dua se a principal instructional leader. Ato ka wai sei. Digi mi am dengel wasi ngana principal uspe angeso. Dia ka del nguti al dru ale di bolungil wai sei. Tila al ngara al mamakar principal ako umaral wasin ngasong sul tokoy. Akman ngartiam ngosong sul tokoy adim dosen kanga instructional leader ngam lamu se lo dega gaigang madil wasir ngalige lama lungil marsenser ngawngin. Mengitu ra selurior. Akmalo nito se bolmus am dumil mastir trigal principal tila al tokol wasit tirga giril dimes ay garogoy. Makamakmlar siya, minigit mo ito ngi. Makamim mo kumlar siya, malaway siya. Malakadim ito, okurtiyo siya, tirigam lang mo siya, manggiri lang karagoy, akmalol ngit, tirigmilo siya, please, ibomestrir, lang ariya ruspe angeso. Parang ariya sensi ruspe angeso. Sige, tama sa kaduli. Kung mutul may gari report card grades. Akmalol ngit, tirigmilo siya, gari report card grades. Agiri dal mo muna siya, amaral A. Lesu mong era ko to school, yung mongir o ngero school. Yung mongir o ngere. Hindi kami amdang lihat tayo, marang aramong segaway segi de mer high school. Yung laria entrance test. Let's say the high school ako masang area ng lagay ng high school dia kalkaltmok la. Digal sabi dan magaral itam lamo freshman. Matial sugom kada mulmul may gagid mal dia ka ko amda se route more quarterly. That's not intention. Agar kasi asum kadam artia marangal kadim lae. Kami kasi they read below grade level. Ar sensor gida amuduyan kasi marangal sangsir. Idiol top dae. Mursel dili adi mo suffer tiangal ka. Kami adi akatar kami mongsong saududin. Di ngal ka self al 8th grade elafel engay gida mo aprevel mo rangkal ngal ka ma adrabli lak amring tokoy. Engka imamadeng menlai. Itiga daktali el sils specialist amna subra kasi sense di ngalai gel sorir. They're not covering the learning targets. Specialist din dia kalawai serme subra. Our principals matamrol wai say. Mar sensei liangal kam laptop ratara school emeratara school. I can see un mes address.
Senator la maldi sebegal duli luan el example tegi del tora ngara ala tegi del ulsador nga minister AR rogul ngal kara school angara schedule tir ngara class ra tirigel ngal tegiril mo munguyo maokmong kodo titelo munguyo kada mam tigel wase ngar dia kalabong ngiril mo din dia kalabong mendi kada tospe angis sama adamong makada oing malungil makada marala neksugat check hindi dia kalbong o makada kada kay ngisel beklat adar mula partatit maradal ngatal impact rangal kada tang school direct kiri mula partatit o lenggal akte example rangal specialist ada Charmaine Mandial nga sora AR murgang along almay tia request kumorger bang morger eng meng nuton mo si school may kadome setel ka sa adal track hindi ka adal mo ng internet ta problem mabalo mo mal fula internet maka kadakay nga sol bekla adal tel nga raling takal sa adal libo rokol osinga dal misata matal sensei kada umarang alwasa ada nga school kay kadakay nga sir rokoy lang nga sir ngal rokoy hindi ka darmulang ala rokoy hindi ka siya alal dira kal pekal tutalo may salmong ang kiril mo marun next week check diak eng metang makamong next week check ang dira kalbong in fact tayo bila dira kal talbong maamre ka sen kuarir hindi kal sige dal mo sa dal ni tokor o munguy ula minister aman sa dal tokor o munguy wa ula ka mo ngira rokoy also kung maada dia kalbong makaramong kira lolisak hindi ka principal mar sensei marangal ko sa mauwarm musub rulital to ka mamdu hindi ka sa malipikinig para next grade kama munguy mo niyangal alam rulisay atro ko marumula patatin kukta kalil kama makuktirulil morsel kuk sa peeleng ya kukka karingangal alilangal kira murangal ka sa kangaringangal alim aba pamamami orier lo maara kalem marokoy kangal alem mga school siya peche kal maadrablim marangal ka mo pakangaral mo niya patati masensay mangira tal subidil baisi kire man asarme na ilgol ng serkaw ngira man mo klikatel masilan mo marangal ka mo super ka matamam rurni dila kam release tamal mring lo ding gira dal move forward dal kay ngisel mo sige dal so dal morngi ako tida utrom betang alsa dal mga imadala kalurut ngin dakal sa dal morui komeng sige komeng
Kaman sulang to akmal rong sorti lang emal gongin asyang way sige ngari ang larbe klaaf Mga sige da di soal lo si. Di sel soal mal muto tokli. Sel gulngit niya say. Sel mga sangal ka. LA. Lelebih nangal ka fail. Emla nga A. Malu bang fail nga B. Malu bang weak. Ikadam lang nga ting sang. Sige asel way sige dating nangal engkal adam maadil umra siyang ngungin. Isel bon tarap sila ng morsin mendiak. Kung mga tanya di sokal malol trok niya say. Katamara ka ng make sure ay gagawin report card grades. Amara lang alila ungin lurere langal. Lesensya am lakot maklaw ng alil. Sige tamal sokal trok ringi. Wala kaloral mo nga po labulan lagi. Did you want to say something, Minister? Yes, Senator Namasaw.
Lungile, tasil sa Minister Rebecca, kamlo touch na point na malko na interesting. Kamlo mention na difficulty na umusub because connectivity na internet. Kung mal alarming lang at this day and age, kung mal na celebrate na Assembly ko tel fiber optic ilang nga second one on board dir katong itak kartial tel malela connectivity especially in mga school. I think it's unacceptable ngalak amo de kalsel subalel comme ça tegi del AR or accelerated readers program el mokte karegal tablet or umurosion wala ngal ka server set purpose mang kuraman mo raro ngatang minister ito sadra issue ra connectivity. Ako lingit pot sa el luri urtiang el address tiang ay gaya ul man direct klar ngal ka mo ta katsil. Remula sublir kom remo sa tablet expected til wase nga tablet ter kami therefore girul complete assignment ter kami by this time and date. Yet internet connectivity on-site ringi is one of the challenges mo. Sa gira ko point ongero point kudos mal kamen der trigger el problem recognizer tir la pursue a higher learning trigger ngila master tir ma tir ma trigger malmol malgara ay gal cohort program mabebira sobra skura PCC online ger mager naman mo ngilar mo dalwasing ngaring isel continue the effort tra ministril malmol malisi or say gital wasing po tanga skule the most of the lords is akar tiral ngal inspire til wase bom nga skulul direct atrak club say kita ko dolmol mal kay ngasuri mang akmaduli se direct kalmal mesa direct kal tram lat report tra kamil wase ngaring mal klol lual kolam lamangim tra ministry tirakal naritar malub to resign malubong kuk ngariango luul mlo da kalodor kola kama mamalkuk ngara private amal face say gid los issue problem ra lack of teachers mo ko matengel kolam lamo o the practice ringil tiriga ritar agablement agi mo lasmal entay sa tir malubagi mengelu urtir el mera kukka kamamel ngara manik tela marwa mizen tilme ol ngasir kamamel el direct el continue el ngasir our students may gigid al kola 3 point tam leswa al kola di raise e wase dol mo mel kay ngasir wase makara address ay gel it's a challenge kamamel ngara malmol mal challenge kamam e do mes ringin direct el akora mal ti akora mal klolo urul damo do mes 10 19 telal sense amla mo wabla bola kalau hindi ko mle assure ka mamalwase even though na mo nga vacancy hindi nga nga ako adjustmental sa amil may ensure nga ka dakal al MOE trom sum makulingit kukul sa aklol amtel kuksira bebira kay gidal knowledge sel mera private tagi mal appreciate sulang
Bong di smodisel kamentra senator Masaw Kumang hindi kal usadar tayo dal tukora connectivity kora wais ti al musadar ngin ngaringi ya connectivity ti arada dia kal bol connect ti marangal kalmo hindi kal ka ngungila tila kumang
This all edel mulwa say our principals ako tal bato ka training el namorngi dire kal underestimate their principals sa dire kal man namorngi ready As scores, I went up 10%. Maldigo sisiu our principals, digo sisiu our sensei. Kada maldiul mes ay gel do our sensei, although vertil mo ay gel borngi mention nga before. Mang aktira kal so kal mo address ay gel baby mlamadung alwasay. Tiada kadil tora wasay kada di moy tangra al morar sensei ya central office ay dakalongrang. Ay gel botokal software bladavar. For example, na obis e omes sa scores ra reading makmleko la blilyo wasang namang gwadak ko sa scores ra blilyo lalo bakmam ngal wasay tomorrow lang din kal submit so sel do sa ding early what yagit say honest reflection ra grades and where we going lawul mang wise gid kakaro sa trend ling kodomes a minister sa dingar obis marse a principal dingar obis e omes wasay ateng rangal kagidil ngarger e kantak tinggal sensel wasay lo kumes sa score ng korawang arang. For example, sa mulsado ng Senator Tabalwal wasay, hindi to test mangarang. Mlaya example, hindi ka beginning na school year, while di ka first semester, ang mal nga yung ateng rangal ka. Magit mo, mo understand mo wasay, while di to test, mal klo aware self lekotel test, hindi ka mo essential wasay. Kaya mal mga urangal, mo understand wasay, tiyagi dal di imol test, maluban dito, ang mal klo aware tengi, mangira mal mo blakarong Lerangal ko mda salwasay, ng afaba test mang, if I don't do well nga yata, number 2, number 3, number 4. Di sal baby laguk tilwan na test maluben 2, ya principal sa elmesang, support tra parent. O sa ulmang, ang algal AF maluben di, di first semester, abal ko say, adiwan na test maluben 2, if malklo away 3, manggil mga adura, ang matumo understand already.
Kamal saur tila mal di imam lulu kalau setila mal nga akmok prinsipyo ng mal dia kurur tila makti berenguk tilbiliw na akut makli di tila alwaseng mo wara di sebel imo test bereng mitian akti subdal wase serak prinsipyo lak mlomesa ripua record puar sensei emlom dengin waseng mlania ngal sang sera gegi sera pok direktor ak metal karekta record pura ngayangan mora ngayaw emlom dengel waseng ngaringia waisegi dengan sangse mesel waisegi dan dia kasebel ngal dingila tul test ma for class work dia kasebel di wa subel ngal ngila betul lurior di berem mitem laut maklil guk telbiliu di nga amal dolito se segir kadam karam dengel wasegal tengar ngal kita ani aklisi trigal ngal mlang mai ya di lastel kawera da mu al manik sing mal di lastel Direktor mo ka mil elisele Palau school student nga outlying states. Tigal nga blilyo mangayaw mangayangal si nga high school malay segi da class. Sedri ka malmol. Kamu ay se katamarang mo madingil waseng nga nga blilyo malubeng ayangal ma ayaw elway segi di an alquadi Zoom classes e al tobra high school ang moa ata alma aklisi elengel ngara campus ra bekelchil sige dadi wat soal gori
oi sula senator rager aigel online program regidel mora outlying states ige synchronous but connected virtual hindi tangara class di war adal ngara rangal nga pala high school mesel temel sel class ingel sense otis akla yangal ngara blilyo mangayaw ndak ilan di blilyo mangayangal tangaragel langarngi e attender sel class matome sringil o trigal el classmate at tamala o sisul homework o sisul classwork o sisul test dakal ngot already trigel ngara campus aong erunga trigel adesal mo challenger say trigel ngara career academy esel bolola igel career mentoring practicum en alangara state mo kasate al rawal ngar orior Mela gawai gayidal specific case at triga assignments bedel mega arrangement malsgum ngara ngayangal le diaksel lurior lo subringi en sebel temporarily move back se direkal diadil full online selbekal semester tana campus 2 weeks matom tirar besel sensor tir mar classmate tira oralbum e margong etrigel guk labmanichel ngara igel belua help facilitate igel classes mandal dil til ma sensel ngartiang actually sel dangarang ayang alengel librarian na help facilitate mabilio mo ay say. Magi hopel wase elalmel school year most of elang ayawral mo nga ngal garingil ko ngarse. Ya connected na yung sa edel direct make sure connection ra pala school mo nga ang ngil maray.
Tiya kamam surat tilakti makti do sing albibila timing odi mo basket rap lilo. Ang moto atergaw masum kangarat team ra national team. Alu bang spider team. Segi dawan ngari yatte gi bilang sang sel gisal wasi selak segi the challenge. Ekti olito se make sure segi da se el morngiling. Adil ngara yegi el lak segi el interaction ma challenge lgora tergi bil moiti train mit compete el morbab. Actually se make sure ang happen segi dum ngang amla se el mo resemel sel tolkan ngarbab. Long lebat homrang ra ulan drap lilo el berasahi kom delo sing tergi bil amo mani nakti duli segi el alak lebat el ang erura rak.
O elang erura rak in fact the example mo spelling amral mi happen. El actual ngalgal swallow sport ngarang ayang le decide lo asendiak akal ndak ate le join ay gel team mang tuk ne relocate tel mira pala school di sel to omsub o setili synchronous mang gel ngarang ayang di omsub la do si nga at sa classroom pala school le trong si su instruction ko SB logera kakarusel gera usil time mang gel ngarang ayang la kampitlo mang gel ngarang site ndakal karusa o si sa clear.
Ya, di soal mal kota kriselin kedirigal madengay. Elang erura ra kamong ong edey ong ewang. En tuob. Mal tuob den di tuob de mera PCC or ikrel belaw. E alakal katmok na. Ngel ngal ka umadengay seng tibel mo ol bangalet. Makulmit al ngali gagil time mo rol sate elel mo rensuringi. Mal tuob de sel mel mo aday ngakal katmok. Sikada mal don tige director mo.
I say best program gel kalakal director da evaluate mo ko o Mr. ngi MLC ngi das was even suling mo sabe del smisia program mo sabil mo rangal kukngan niya alita trir tangara babal daw tangara oyor ni da sibil physically temera campus langara bliri del access au civil online learning mo seguida ko ra protocol singe del akmen nga duara pala school was hindi ora programa yor del smisi leng opportunity sabel ngan madal time offer class ra pala school mo rangal outer island ra southwest mandakal may or even blue lab man del service sector so igay del advance ra internet most online learning mo o ngirumurt makadamal los pera tigay del implement curriculum instruction na kaya ng sel lo se magrada se tolisi the program sulang.
Ma'am sulang maniya ko el question natin buwan. Yes, Senator Singino.
Yam sulang chairman malungili tasil se direktor ang komisar tayo online learning yakmal ko ra omdas oreng sergamiu maigal ko ra ogosula lologoria chairman elgira lengelngal kalmesu din dia ka telel mer orior involved sa social part tial development tra education dia kal socialize lo tiar protocol ngal ko mang segi da ko ra gi sangal ngal sang seleng oy mo ngira school hindi sel social part ngil ko mudo lo tiar adama environment ma kumgoram lo tar ngil ma sports makmungora o mo kasir ngir gidra laka alay trakuran da magdamal mudo lo yakyo sel da bora ako amel onay galay tindi mo dia kadabadir tial tu mengora igegi de o kosiu ma igegi del baby ratto kol gora obengel tial education ngal holistic el af dakadil togora ku kamo din dire ka social partner ngi maigel ku baby aspect tra student in a campus versus angal kal online ngal sila room ngil musu sige da gora
man sulat al point diklutel mo tergib clearing programa da offering il optional da kad require te yang ka outlying el dinga regel ka bludir ya kada direct understand that idol wasay include tutel al nga time lang ra campus lo ventri ra our peers mong se dul mo uringi ra time ra covid el lo tral address ra tial rolla lang okra al sel orior kada what the help parents marangal kal ragi del belu remain el optional emeral ngarangal kal mlaringa la semester gukti sa asenda el second semester agi mar campus batuk may merogo next semester ngaring si the flexibility tirel leng tokora dalang okla segi dia dokora obal address ngimang mendia kada mandate tilo asiko mal garab liliom kom dingar tilay so ngaring ate lil back and forth sulang
Yakban sula really good commenter sa gid option nga al sel. Hom da sa gid towards both ways and morangal student ma education part to. Sula.
Can I add one little bit to that? We already have 2 tiers of our students in Palau High School. I'm a parent, speaking as a parent. We live in Ole. They come to school in the morning they get up at 5:30, 5 o'clock, come in. We can live with that. But then they have to leave at the bus, schools out. They cannot participate in athletics or the dramas and clubs like that. That's why I would urge you to support our attempts to build another high school in Babeldaub, to be able to serve the needs of those children as well as those who live in Irai, to where they can have a reasonable expectation of participating in a full high school experience. So I appreciate your thoughts on that, Senator.
Sula Minister Senator Sangpo.
Musale Minister Akmal lo marat tilang ang mala high school hawa yung maral gid nga school agil district rigid me damang gukti kal kulte me maka mute mo al mara school al mal magi sa mal dikit tutaw. Aktiral mal ngatang mal mo congratulate kami sa program ra reading. Akmal remember ngara University of Hawaii may program ra kil president ra University of Hawaii kwasing selm K to 3 and I'm glad that komna ula kindergarten. K to 3 learn to read. If from after saying you read to learn everything you want to know in the world mo ngui ka makmal otong mi sa gid Director Aidak Mal Swaksel Blom Dili akum dasing ginadam ra lo mes igel bright spots and how we can replicate the igel success. There's something to be said ra igel school ungil el ginadal sub ginadal monge absorb kwasengra what are they doing differently than the other schools and may igel lessons ra gid mo tral mo aplara and that I think akum dasing you guys are on the right track o mes kwasengra igel success ra igel school tral replicate having said that, ako curious, so kalmo mo ngayon, maybe rather appropriate, but I think neswakal mesa kuk Iowa test, regal private schools. Leng komlamig takautal mention minister kwasing nga te alal smugtal malayar Peace Corps volunteers. Musin regal school ngaya tegigil volunteers wa STA mga nanging maybe also kung ma-test tira while reading ngil, maybe that's maybe partly the reason. I'm not saying that's the reason. Dito I believe ang ada kalolar Iowa test. But I'm just saying kasi kam ko mo so kung sabi for your own internal assessment tegor omes ay gigide guk komes singra ko ra sabi guk mesling nga kamaktiregal guk adamit kasi tirigal guk mlara private school aguk mlolak behind there guk mlara public school at ko ra madram start tra Singapore math. And that was something a private school. Emlok kasi kama magira mo on board on this thing. So I think ang gilal nga rin sige tira after all tadi ngalagay ngal karbelaw. Director mo all makumdas sa sing gilal lomes ay gigid kakaros. Akumdas al direcal maybe partling direcal nga maybe sige mal ko emphasize rin it gigid besel strategic plan sel malal marak character. Ako na siya talgibal masangar alcela private school ma dolmiak karakter ang algal which is maybe talgibal wala dakal sual kwasen dia maybe siya giredel ngartiang maguspe tal kasi kami parents nga public school lagi rin mo involve ra a schooler nga lagi after all I got taxpayers kami mong kom demand ra sel mong dak ngartel malhiga pa ngartel bay mo mga lerar parents kwaset talgibal algirin mo involve ra schooler ang algir malol ngit molomol malmrura really ak palo manak masing ngariya ko kom momes ngi el vision kami and hopefully that will be a success ra future bela minister ko ma bekal sula
So la Senator Songabay di ko ay serka Senator Songabay sa kamar public school parents. Malaw diglarang mama, imo, mama, o Rokui. We'll do the best. Ti confirm say. Sige ram na mo may say mong tiakango drutul morsel, kadi mo morsel togora teacher quality. Makti say tagagi the minister and then we'll give you some comment to address way to improve instruction. Akti inotri ti minister was excited trigger the 11 master's degree program. Akmal ngarti trigal ngalged broda sa tir. Mo yes kom counted til accomplishment and dictrigal was say we're doing our part and mo very self responsibility self tuition we are trying our best to make sure that trigal ngal umura chief tilay ma chief ngiraswe ma chief tabalwal director mo all a chief tomochi ma Chief Miguel. Sir Omar Selomara about top emlol aras kuliw menimla ka isurti kamiu. Kado urol girel men trigal ngal get amok ko girel top del almel May. Trige og del ngal trigal 11 ngal get. Kado mal bade bang presenta Paulo sangat amal ngal tanga telong na sergid. Pada borsel chils esel bolorail. Ilo dengan lo asing mla mga kata balsis. Dan dia kalau ngil lo lang lo siya askurul ablur belau. Amlo sebel MOE tawai tirga kita lagi. Yar bekla adal menangai. Yakmal menang sulla present Paulus lang artiang. Ngoso wamer segi dem. Katang artiat makaluro lang. Kami asi ul dire kalau lang sir kamam. Elakbol to tirga el almel buile. Es el oral mol o do orel el gora rarandir asing mlap artel school mal uben dia segera disokal kuk an arpartak mention si sel trigel tu ngara degree sa malungil degree director Gilgalen o sel waiver maluben tuition assistant program mlamu ng girelgir.
Ela se kam tang li tiang senator tabalwal tiam kontaktar program el mrael el one ragolo sel fase granta ol tobda ra educators are other belau matamo ola batigi el al 2023 en segi del la amlo tautel wasar bekkel sensera classroom agil diog degree el al time at 58 are sensel already employed edregal musel degree Tigal ada dial besel sensei le HR capitol na mo dial larti na mo dial certified ada lo diploma tigal ada makatatalo 10 years 15 years mangangi obligation ra a ministry lo top ra tigal at ma el al time engangi list el giblam compiler ngi la mo one el semester el gimbro ngi le bida digam le close ma pisisingi lu se omura fall oi elang kada malara 25 ya next 25 enya magim de magatmok segi tigi the last el adal 58 el sensel magatatal sensera ministry dialo diploma le sel time nguk mlengot el tegem le grandfather into teaching es el time nguk mle certification mega gidel besella
Komam solo director Gilgalen tilang ado ngito se bolse el segi del mongil yang area senser gidel alaktil lagi dengan dia kalau ulen maktul ni tangis sulgira siapa kain sel make sure yang happen. Era al mursel conventional coaching and mentoring el bodeng lo siang wayal flow kami al tau tengi. Mak muy gagi de gamentra principles el las moditialen. Ang el principal lo siang coaching amalungil dim le statra alastire guk modia. Tia 6 weeks el one on one mong specialista me di mel telgibe ukwabol lora el mangari ko ali tul segi to coaching e wase gi uknora RTI response to instruction mase metiaman leungil do sending madim le telgibe stop e wase ela ka makukara plan for success mungora di gu ontil meru mase gabe bom saigal tokol moltaut e bom sigal ulel mel el bol sebel consistent le trigegi de los pe aigel eso agora wal tamsal malungil E umuul, din dia karigir. Menggigil sensei los peangeso. Awala kalpol sebel mongil ang nama mereka kuarer mong selway segit ang mukwal blal moitate alel sebel mongil los insakla. Marang nagil adire kal moitate alel sel improve instruction. Segit amal di on tigil gila gigil. Mlam sa dang artiang le to aseng mal mleungil ding wal dia kal consistent palubel ultrokla temel elomu elebol mereka polisi trigal adel ngarai kal program no mungin betul segit aku awal kanser la arsense mar principles.
Senator di instructional coaching adir gamaraila. Au alela instructional coaching au ulma kadam lora instructional coaching. Sera 2 years ago in mentoring. Ya mentoring adir kalsab el ngarni gidel instructional coaching. El asal mentoring ang ngarni awase ab esel sensei sellesis ya wanda teacher all sis aklani. That's sabi el enggal wanda teacher enggang anya full class ngi. Mang dia sabi el mang normally sa yang ramang esel bring mentoring eng by dosis aklil mga dro babier ang mo print ang mga lang esel instruction am oita. Maul mang mula instructional coaching ang kadammal ngwa sensei baby la time osis akla ulmang tala omdas la senguk ngadaang tiagi del digultaw tendir sensei ahmal kakaro sa level right kaki del learning tiral baby instructional coaching kadam over al sila classroom el maungir osis akla al baby la dabora instructional coaching au el bornya instruction kadam over aigel instructional tool lo spi sensei esel versta instructional coaching engel me sensei am le apra principal principal OIT batabay dim na sensya mal mamadurni lemne purpose se awase selbo domere gedora le kukura tra school ete di 18 are specialist ya principal am lamam madur tel tokoy manguk take over a school el asemil oitra principals madum ko do mela clear el ar sensei ma instructional coach a specialist mal na mamadu this set tele se awrede la principal el instructional coach lengire del guk maral mo bebira school ya principal agel mamadu misegi da alito tula rir al time ngel principal agel mo moto tel toy instructional coaching abul gula mulwa say asen a principal am badang content tama standard em badang la instruction em do will observe es el dit pro classroom edong ilwaset tel osisakla to badara tatel ayegi da gel do model was instructional coaching kodol sisakang gal principal you have to remember as a principal sometimes en lesson sa ukti 8th grade emo principal. Magadol sis akangi agel gamo rabek agel ganten tama standard rabek ka subject. Albebi la principal ako timne sensor 3rd grade emo principal. Mang boto gadol sis akra principal.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. We seem to have skipped something. Would you mind going back just a moment? We're moving into capacity building, correct?
Yes.
We overlooked what I think is the most important thing we need to know about in this entire process. And that's been discussed, it's been talked about, and that's reading. And I particularly want to thank Senator Umi for coming up with his experience. We have found that reading in our schools is the major issue that we need to address, because there's no doubt about it. Our students have difficulty in reading. If you look on page 8 of our letter, you'll see that our 3rd graders are almost 2 years behind already. It's not their fault. In the 8th grade, they're now 4 years behind. It's not their fault. We've missed them somehow. We haven't taught them. And for the technology now is such a vast importance to us to be able to do this for. Because what was said earlier about reading is knowledge, or reading to learn, learning to read, has a lot of foundational belief. In fact, in terms of neurological development now, reading, particularly reading fiction, develops brain synapses better than almost any other way we can do it. So for example, if you're reading a book, and it's a book about I don't know, ancient times or whatever, you create that book in your mind as you're reading it. Reading is very active. It's a very active process. Even though you're sitting there, your brain is very active. You are creating, what does the hero look like? What does the villain look like? Where are they? What do they wear? What are they doing? Then you start getting into the ideas of why are they doing things? What are they going to do next? Those are all very advanced thinking skills, whereas if you're reading, you're developing those at a young age. Those are what we later will call intelligence. So by not allowing our students to develop reading skills, we're retarding their intelligence growth. And that's why it's so important for us to focus on this. That's why I don't want to get away from it. Because the AR program will enable us to do that. We don't all need to go out and get master's degrees in readings any longer. Our students can read in a classroom. You can have every student reading another book that they choose on their own. And the system will, we already know what their reading levels. We know their reading levels from day one. We can track them anytime we want to get another reading level. So we know where they are. And so there's a reading level which is known as the zone of proximal development, which is ZPD. That means reading within that level will attribute the greatest growth in your reading and your intelligence growth. And that's what we need to aim on. Because as we look at our standardized test scores, we're good in computation, we're good in vocabulary, we're weak in analysis, because we're trying to teach analysis after we haven't given them time to learn to read. And that's what we need to do, and that's what we are doing right now from grades 1 through 8, and I believe we're going to start going to 9th grade next year, because our students have to have that chance. Our society needs them to have that skill in order to succeed. So I think that's one thing I really want to point out, that we need support for this. We need that for us to all buy into it and develop a reading culture on Palau. If you look into our schools, I spent 7 years walking around the elementary schools. I never saw anybody reading. My own children, we read all the time. They haven't read, I think they've read one book since we've arrived. So I think we need to get back to say, if we want to develop the intelligence of our students, we have to emphasize reading in our early elementary grades. We have to. There's just no other way around it. And I didn't want to let us go, because what we've been doing for years and not just here, we're giving kids books that they can't read. And that makes no sense any longer. So that's why sometimes when you'll see in our instructional request, we're not requesting books as much as we're using technology, because technology allows the individualization. For example, when a student has read those books, the computer will then be able to identify areas of weakness that they have and tell the teacher. It might be something as simple as has trouble with short vowel sounds or needs help in this. It's a checklist. So they can look at every single student in their class, find out where their weaknesses are, and then individually help them out. Hopefully in the class, but if not, maybe an intercession. But it's so important for us to not lose track of that, because we need to be united on this issue. And we really ask for your assistance and your support for this program, because it's not, reading is fundamental not only for education, but for our society as a large. Okay? Thank you.
Stale Minister, malungil magadulit ila makalmutan marakatili. Our kids are reading below the level they need to be. But the report card grades are all A's. I just want to make that point. It's hard to make an impression when the kids are getting A's, and I agree with you. We need to work and encourage our parents and have their ownership in this program. There's no question in that. I just want to make sure that these report card grades reflect the level of the kids that they're at.
Okay. Let's share successes also. Let's not always focus on the difficulties we have. I had a principal come in today. It was very atypical. She's a very quiet person, excited about something that's happened because of their Be Able. Her students improved by 75% overall. And they're thrilled, because this is a school that's kind of looked down on. It's not a really good school. But they had success, and that's what we need to focus on. If we set standards and the students reach those and they exceed it, that's a good thing. Getting an A+ is not a bad thing. It's a really, really good thing. So we should celebrate those successes and trust in the educators as to what we're doing. This is a different approach, I know. But I mean, I think it definitely works, and it will show an advantage. And you can't anticipate fixing things which have happened over 20 years in 1 year. It's going to take some time. But we anticipate significant growth in our students' reading levels as we move forward. Unfortunately, because it was delayed in implementation, we missed almost a half a year, which is very disappointing. But we're on it now. It's happening. So we're going to start seeing results. I guarantee you're going to start seeing results.
So la minister pol blaktak lo se gumamang artial loldu ay gal program. Dia kang artial to ka AR mabi able. Sel lontria principal sa sem gusto gumam ng sutra sensel mamdu lo tawt ta segida di so kal emphasize ni. Timo sel teacher training ay gida gel plak ko ay so segida gel wal principal so ni training make sure ay gida los pe principal sa musutrir. Atara concern la masaw the sel ay gel sumul morngira temela instructional time. Meringra sensei maluwet the principals al bang larangal ke ngaringi al bibila time in kita tablon moral ay gedi udars. E commercial partra principal leadership in you training principals and being instructional leaders and evaluation techniques and all of those good things. Yeah, master plan as engaged empower principals, my teachers. I get mam katmukla ungil. Akti recognize sel lontria principles. Lolito la sel bolungil la communication ng kamilo pantrir. Tamlal usya babier yang ani ontrir. Kasi bolsi ilungil mong lo pantrir bom ka ng egel rogul kamia oldars al mortir. Legal mo sa ungil tokoy. Dinggirel mo niya ungil aldo lo pantrir marsen sertir matong ungil lobong kamil makalogror. Ya ti site tial concern principal wal lonia tokol was saying selangania management or principals forum and the amoldar sangrin mera management team wal giril dil muk your ranks. You don't have to comment until later say, Minister, if the principals are going to be part of the team, we have to build that team. Please work with them. Hindi ka principal ko dangli lom to kay kan mo sa ata. Di ba mungil mo to urtir? Emerald trail mo part tial kami amat mo korngi. Da kami amna principals ang artiar rogum ko mo na se magara ta kalurior. Sige to on three principals. Di ka lom to kay kan mo rule, o mo rule on trail mo ngin. Sige ta diso ka lotter gakli. Kaya debora gel school resources. Yang akora abiot hindi umamesan ng dumi kom mula ba igel budget allocation mula ministry lulmura 2020 21 ma 22 ma 23 ila sa budget ra ministry kom sangara email dart telan madanil seguida walo oti a support ra a president mo olvira global was en close to tire la yigit el all time e community al dirga textbook mga almora school e plan na mo mala textbook ra social studies magyolito sa sumani audo minister please get the resources to schools last year nimla textbook now you're planning to get some hopefully you get those textbook needed to the schools because you do have the funds available to you.
Yeah, we're at the final stage of the processing for that purchase of the social studies textbooks. Last year, I don't know if it was ever really explained, we couldn't come to an agreement with the vendor because of an outstanding disagreement as how much who owed what money. And so by the time we got that ironed out, the textbooks would not have arrived anywhere close to the school year, so we had to delay. But we do really appreciate the support on that. And it will, I mean, it's in the last stages of being processed. Yeah.
Sauti lang. Alas tel tokora supplies, instructional supplies. gora meu del mora school. Please work the logistics. To request ra Augusto meu del gong some logistics issue. Just please work the process. Mal sabi la request instruction supplies go to the schools. The sooner the better. Atara site ningil lontrira ada Palau school like ada mechanic ma carpentry. Tingnan carpentry, they used to get supplies, plywood and lumber to do project. They haven't received any of that to date. Gil sincera mechanic gigedera longila achetrin makas madongulo spera siap. He hasn't received any. Hopefully he can work with them. Get those supplies to the shop. Those supplies are listed as something that they need.
We have, I made a special request of all the principals saying we wanted, as soon as possible, for them to get us every single thing they need in their classrooms, because we have allocated, as you pointed out, the funding to be used for the fourth quarter of this year and the first quarter of next school year. And that's about $75,000 per quarter is what's allocated for that. And that, our problem is getting people to submit the allocation request. I've gone around and actually gone through the classrooms and talked to teachers, and when you get in there with them, as you well know, they'll tell you what you want to hear, but then if you look, you can see, do you need a new whiteboard? Do you need this? Do you need bookshelves? And they need those things. But getting people to ask for them is tricky, so we do need to work on that. But the money's available, and we're trying to do better with that.
Thank you. And last result, the list devices, we went around to get a survey. They're all in front of you. Again, work with the schools to help them get the devices needed. There's some shortages. Some schools, you have the list. I know you do have a list. I just want to bring that out to make sure that you get your way to get the devices to the school.
Just for your information, thanks to the President and Minister Aitaro, we have received a grant promise from the Republic of Korea for $500,000 worth of computer equipment, which we have already resubmitted back to them. Included in them are laptops for students, laptop teachers, all kinds of computer stuff. So we anticipate that should not be a major problem in the future.
Okay, Ma'am Sala Minister. Taitay kita aplada kabar nila lebong letiang. Edi can you please just update on the teacher certification system? Where are we? If you have you can share a few notes on what's the plan ahead for the teacher certification.
Oh yes.
Yes, can you share a note on that?
I'm sorry. Yeah. We as you know, we submitted a draft of that to your committee. I guess that was about a year ago. And we've been working on it. It was just recent. I think it was yesterday we got it. Yesterday it's finalized. We are prepared to give it to the President for his review and approval. The only thing outstanding on it right now, and it's a completed issue, is our salary structure. We are looking to try to develop our salary structure so that it will encourage people to enter teaching and encourage them to remain in teaching and to improve their skills. So rather than enter at one level and stay there for the rest of their lives, it's a sliding scale, where as you enter, if you get more credit, more professional development, degrees, et cetera, you move up on the scale. But it will cost a significant amount of money. But it's something which is an investment which I think we can make. And it will also enable us to attract people to come to Palau as teachers, so that it enable Palauans to go off island to study and then return to become teachers. That's a model that we'd like to re-implement. So, but that's the teacher certification. We basically it's ready. As I said, it's ready to go. I just got the final draft from HR today. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So la minister siya tayo kita agim na suadro mes agim la atong tumia.
Can I add one thing? Can I add one thing? I want Director MOE to tell you what he's been up to over the past months or so about school renovation projects and things like that, which I think we don't really hear too much about, and we should hear more about it. So I want to let Ray, would you?
Kapo Director mo.
Oy, sulang, Chairman. Akti, kada kita din tinggal wasegal school mostly na mo of over 50 years la school. Direct at this point in time kada mesel wasay. Magara sabe del bay kada ora bes school. Malakado mol de la bawdo del moit del moraigal repair egal. Mang ogi segi del luldas bengal ngegel el gigal bla logo minister girel la bes school abal daw. Kita direct kal malmol maintain egal ngaringil. Those pe anti levels bedruk kada ora bes school mo. Ang ogi wa igel kuk sabe del mara local budget. Maigel kuk mangara egal grant. Merogo kada oltaw tagay del urior upgrade the facility. This wakal laway so sa all time mga nga award 6.05 million. El project el nga karos el funding source el doltaw trail all time. Nga igel kuktob dara tiel Taiwan stimulus grant kada mga sula president igel solar power nora pala high school misel kuk school climate control project el nora pala high school makoror. Direct kada milsada internet connectivity direct kada ngela ministry of health del ngwa 350,000 ludo dra CDC el upgrade dra secure the internet network radrong lila iga rogul school belaw mang public ma private el mera ministry amle mokte ka pseudo dra CDC magada amle mokte gida se kada connect a school mora ministry of health secure connection mosbel nganya igel data igal health screening and sebela health ma school sira igel data mi mokol ngal secure ya usulta me sel network health pra igel tokor subra wa online learning ma masel project the anticipate wasing el almenya las el complete manganya timer el schoolir el testra a network era bon berga school direct tiale chimra koror mal makategat se the upgrade ngil telgibil ko matiat chime odui emro ko lo aigel gano pirngi mo da alto adrib ko se kudo dara dio ai el dingilur sera typhoon surige dirigol tau terngi mo direct girel midmen na complete man se la koror los peringira temela promotion direct udodra tiale Japan GGP grant kading ilo 487,000 el mo kadora es el umra skura muns es el current el cafeteria la CIP la kandemerngin wasing structurally unsound makada marak karingi kadora es el umra skura muns seguido lo radik medung mo maut el mamad orsay direct tial nombre kalbuile kada lilut el matablora TCP grant el wanangia mo renovate la school der heris mainly song sa grant mo kada dimle prioritize agel ado mo de ka mars ma school der ngart mau ida tablo school no edro sis per se chairman ka direct kandang lisel teacher training center tele ibsa fund se ngara 2018 kada ulmo ursel process mel mutelang mo waldir ka model kada ndiudo dal gondir ngarse mo kadol gisringi mong kadol lo bengela ayo emre lang el loltauto seguir project ngara 585,000 el meru seguir mlem utlo bisra pala school mo teacher training center mo help paigel rele la curriculum ra gukto kora teacher training ma development last tayo recently a president taul modong magimlong ama ministering ang masaudar sel 3 million Saudi Arabia fund misegi lang adoryo lo mangela CIP baru scope of work la sem garapodol tauter say dulurior mang agegi daurior ngari lang gel gega kasing sel endel sodal mesang asegado mokpesa school agel school to orior ado ngel wasem mol di school en dia kaba ngod basyol de bonni di te lang arabal dawal demral sedolom god ora bes school el complete up to standard el ngal ka dio babu ngil motmu ero ko yang ani I'm hoping wasing within the next few years aduk mam ka urawan mesal wasing guk malwang rang ya guk to for next school eventually bol kasa school el meral lungila igal facilities el girang alget am sulang
Saule director ko ministerio kumtawa Santa Cruz al amla eko holding regmi ko amal nung ilegal program dia kadim ring asaule lagi da maklututel adi sokal ko koril aigal skule damla mo air condition malungil sengwang ra kora perder to kora ara dengir como mara pachet tersires
ela kada kaidel few months ela fiscal year ado mesra pala school makoror legi dable install air condition mla increase mang seguidel solar el mra pala school la help per seguidel offset ra ma korora direct kul deswal maldasa setial cima bol mrek en sebedel micro le la kaidel solar ko klorado mang sebel help per sel ra dengi so aldasa aseng sel upgrade en gredel direct lom daswa solar el mo help el reduce a cost direct ko anticipate lo setial besel solar ang at pangabaluryo ang latal gibel medio at charge sa PPUC man dia arsal mal mo di agi mo elagi mot krabat setria next year magi omes agi del cost trial mo adjust guk mo sell the projector ngil el annual school year.
Okay, I'm Saule directore korolingiter kami kom tonarira PPUC sierra parking lot mo koram lulu urtir segil ongengetel minister have a lunch with the CEO and make him a good friend of the ministry. President Pablo Sangaria ko na saman mo kung sisira wala tong simen.
Malungil itasil silmergaya minister matrigal direktor ka. Makakatengel ngara a hearing ra atora school. Mambay malbot to ka black super gamiwar direktor rogui. Madi tengel gor gamiwa se mrenga suliw. Malulungit lesel kurang ser gamiwa ko madangengar aliw. Sel mongod adu present taigal tugol molgoy longer aigel gariar senators yakmo mdangel wase kemia amru langar aliw madi kulngit ngir kemi wat teamwork kemi ngara management polsibir makalorior kay ngasew segid teamwork kemi direkal mol gorar principle melbornya teamwork tiro guil makalorior marsense that's the only way we can succeed ra al skuleda adra ablur belau sel gureng sergmiweng malmungilar ngo sel skum kom makalore kay ngasew len kom dengan sia di tarolele ke succeed sel teamwork mung soal malisi segit kami amadangay dia ka on mul mera olbira lulaw lagim ngasug mirngi altang morngi gel alita tamamrngi digi moray gel sa amro guyo olong ser kami tol gulgornge minister sel toera tirgel sensel lorngi sel gora miscommunication en wel 1008 seludo ding diagi mo besel olong ser kami maseralme senator tabulwal lorngi tlo sen gired ngo sutrir yagim lor murterngi mang I hope pesegid miscommunication kami ma PCC adia gimlut mor mensel wase lorngi akora ay idar kami mang al suma PCC fair ulangar alel minister herpertir communicate mortir ay ga direkal gim dilura adaktor telel wasi al suma ngari ako ngar aliwa high school le model sabiu ekaw president tra PCC mo maklat kertir len dia sebedro oi titrir tirgen ngal kami amad ngari sel got ludo dra skala civil lulungit terngi tirgel parents tirgel ngal ng Amerikel emlo de katte le laudo mang senator tabulwala amne malgoy magim lo si garolel dingkok lungod audas mong lo de kalto digim lalmut logisi magim otob daudo del mortir besel udo del mora PCC mendiregal senator tabulwala mal milgol wasen gire de lo ngasew baige gibo motob del al supplemental budget lo ngasew ra gigid magulngit na minister melbornya ungil communication kami malakbo to face away gigid lendi hal sibela imol ngal may imol sensel mo o gire de lo top dringi la to tubdi mal important maktul ngit segid lo set teamwork pom daklo ro lo bangela PCC ma PCC lo bang kami lo ro malakal dut mo ma way segid lo ringa way algora araureng ma miscommunication kamama dekal soma malbornya cloud talak kidirek lo ngiter gmiu ra management ra ministra education musutrir tirgel principal kita madengel waseng selbol mereka school kom evaluate kamama direk lo rengs lel baby den ngaringa skur ngar den skur ngar along skur ablilio guk ngaringa aigel blo lungir ngi temlongir ramat temlongir ra english ma oy geigit ingaka kutul dial lungil toy sel dudul waseng a principal ngar along amngit a principal ramalgyo amngit dial lungil na dos pera tol makngit kadabay uspel wasay belum tak sudah prinsip perang along ma melgeo madang sutrir then after ole ay ka skule dem gire del magi olong so rulo tril morba maktiol ngiter se gidel timor olong ite minister pol sub eul ngaringi se ungil communication kumi mar prinsip por ay kalbek school mo sutrir belmong se ay kalbek school al silbelaw mundige gidaktung yang akamal mreng suliw e malol ngitra timor al sila ministry ra education mon mutra yel bekl elementary school mansula
Han saula President Paules ra yegil yamal dab do bola gi malo lingit mai gel ngi tilu President Paules awol ngi to omorar em ngai ay manulu ni alwa sige de minister em gulngi tra gam polse em lodro sia closing statement tragaw e polse del smerital hearing argi.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm very happy to meet with you again like this. I think we had a very good discussion. I particularly want to thank President Bakbaulis for your statement of the teamwork. We learn by our mistakes. I think we bring that up, and we learn by what we maybe could have done, which we didn't do. And so we have to work to continually improve. But I think we've made great strides so far this year, and the people sitting here have done 99% of it. And I really want to let you know that they have done a remarkable job of tolerating me, of adapting to my style, and making me adapt to what works best here. So I want to thank you all for what you've done. And that I think we have a great future ahead of us now, and we're moving forward. And when I give you the bad news, remember, that's not really bad news. That's where I've identified our problems, and that's the big key. We now have identified some of them, and we can attack them, and we can make corrective action. And thank you for your support. Especially, we need those new schools. There's just no way around that. And I'm going to go to my grave on that one. We are going to get those done because Ray's working too hard to keep these old schools together. We need to start looking above that to where we give our students not only the educational programs they deserve, but the buildings to be in receiving those. That's important. So thank you very much for this meeting, and appreciate everything what you've all given us today. Thank you.
Mr. Minister Kamal Saura il altingem me guntira Vice Chairman Sunginom Bol lomter kamal asmara meeting ri.
Sulay Chairman utul malungil itasil semar beklaf Minister kamal sulang ra talti al mosab edr guk mem gadang okla and then gadasma da igal guk mlara bebula table logora oversight hearing il gira la guk Ministry of Education. Mengakmal di momtera chairman ma arangalela Senate, ma president tra Senate, e ma laure ngasulil gire la te alla. Andia ka ngodal bodo tunga kada ada du e tril toga mal duk masaka ma close a chairman akoram dasul la asab el makmaka ga rogul el adu. Head for knowledge. Kada ngatiang leng aptuluda omdasu magal tokol education ma rogul gammo kamera aptulud. Ma heart for compassion. Compassionate heart tergire larbek ada doro loban terir wada baglat kil kwaseta ang kadakakaro sel adro urior e kakaro sa adu ada melbol klormuth ito urior sum urior melbol nya understanding larbek ada murut urior melbol sub edel mral magura timor gol urior hand for service agaro gul to adul makpakarogui lesegi del services segi del morar adal da urior el girir mga igigid el tringhed, maharta, mahenda, el mosekura igigid el rogul. Igigid atran mga tmok la torre education. Ya last takmal di mo wala dulik talbos kuk iluwira tutaw. El gora ura rogul togol klaw marang igigid agil MCC overcome igigid rogul challenges in the face of ekal silsa. Mo muyo ang mga ragot el Petrus chapter 4 verse 10. El kumata matar kamiu bolu ngilo spe ayel lamadu uring il togol ngilar arbakal Dios. Mabor klunyo li arbeklav. Mga akmal orang asulil gira teal le orang asulil la chairman teal el mosabe ko kom tera kamiti e osmeriten meeting igigid. Omal misulang.